एवरीवन, आज हम करेंगे द अर्ली ईयर्स ऑफ स्पेंसर्स लाइफ। आज ये वीडियो थोड़ा लंबा होगा क्योंकि इसमें हमने कैम्ब्रिज ईयर्स भी पढ़ना है, उसके बाद हमने आयरलैंड भी पढ़ना है और इसमें आज हमने लास्ट ईयर्स भी पढ़ना है, तो ये थोड़ा लंबा वीडियो होगा। चलो स्टार्ट करते हैं इसको। Not much is known about Spenser's life. It is reasonably certain that he was born in London, probably in 1552. 1552. Although he himself came of poor stock, he may have been related to the Midlands noble family of Spenser, who had been made wealthy through sheep rearing, which, as we saw from the previous unit, was a growth industry in the 16th century. He was entered as a poor boy in Merchant Taylor's grammar school, where he would have studied mainly Latin, with some Hebrew, Greek, and music. The school was established in 1560 by the Guild of Tailors and was one of many founded by similar guilds across England at this time, following a modern humanism oriented education. Spenser matriculated from this school and joined Pembroke College in Cambridge University in 1569 as a sizar or poor scholar. As such, he had to undertake various odd jobs and manual tasks around the university in return for the education. This was also the year when his poetry was first published. These were translations from the biblical book of Revelation, four sonnets of the 16th century French poet ये नाम थोड़ा बेले, as well as translation of a French version of some epigrams by the Italian poet Petrarch. They prefaced an anti-Catholic prose tract and were probably commissioned by the chief author of the tract, the Flemish expatriate Jan van der Noot. He received his BA from Cambridge in 1573, left briefly because of an epidemic in 1574, then returned for his MA in 1576. During his stay in Cambridge, he was known to have been befriended by Gabriel Harvey, a witty, ambitious, but somewhat pedantic and devious fellow of Cambridge, from a similar social background to Spenser. The latter was to later celebrate their friendship in the figure of ये थोड़ा सा मिसप्रिंटेड है, just wait. It is Hobinol in the शेफर्डेस कैलेंडर, जो कि लिखी गई थी स्पेंसर के द्वारा 1579 में. What they shared apart from their literary pursuit was in an atmosphere of social mobility and opening possibilities. The ambitious expectation that this education would offer them rank and status. Now, Cambridge years and after. At Cambridge, Spenser picked up Italian, French, and past and contemporary English literature, along with a wide reading in the Greek and Latin classics. Alongside this, he read much in pagan mythology, divinities, ancient and contemporary philosophy, and pagan and English legends and folklore. It was a knowledge. It was a knowledge that provided the foundation for the kind of fusion of themes, forms, and generic styles that he attempted so successfully in his later poetry. He is known to have read Homer's Iliad, Virgil's Aeneid, Ludovico Ariosto's Orlando Furioso, and Tasso's Jerusalem, delivered, all of which probably were formative in the writing of Fairy Queen. लाइकवाइज फेरी क्वीन जो है एडमंड स्पेंसर ने लिखी थी. लाइकवाइज द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ वर्जिल्स, बिकोशियो एंड अदर इटालियन एंड फ्रेंच पेस्टोरल पोएट्री are evident in Shepherdess calendar, just as are the Petrarchan sonnets and canzone form and other Italian, French, Latin marriage odes evident in the Epithalamian and the Amoreti sonnets. Spenser weaves all their मतलब जो भी लिखा था ना इन्होंने बहुत ज़्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस थे जो कि पुराने क्लासिकल जो पोइट्स थे उनसे. Okay. Now, Spenser weaves all these diverse streams of reading and knowledge together in his poetry, but without losing an essentially Christian orientation. In fact, much of his reading drew from earlier humanist attempts like De Amore, ये है Ficino, Ficinos de Amore, to reconcile a popular Neoplatonism of the Italian Renaissance with Christianity, with the central tension very often between the idea of spiritual love and that of sensual or earthly love. Spenser's poetry thus is haunted by this tension and offers a rich tapestry of meanings that draw on diverse and multiple sources in its quest for reconciliation. In Spenser's case, in fact, the tensions are exaggerated by his desire to aggravated है ये by his desire to establish a specifically English literary discourse or the spirit of English nationalism which we noted in the previous unit. Nationalism की एक भावना थी उनमें ना, तो वो पोइट्री ऐसे लिखना चाहते थे. Why not much is known about the specificities of Spenser's religious life? It is fairly certain that religion played an important role in his thinking. Not only was it a central feature of his school or college education, it was an unavoidable element in the climate of his times. मतलब religion तो था ही उस time पे. In the acrimonious debates and struggles between the various denominations and sects. These were debates that were very much in the air in Cambridge too, specifically on the question of whether England was right in abandoning Catholicism and the more radical view of adopting a more Puritan church than the Anglican. What Spencer's own opinion in these debates is not clear. मतलब वो उनका क्या opinion था पता नहीं है. But the view earlier held that he was inclined to be a radical Puritan does not have much evidence to support it. Okay, Puritan Church. Puritan हो गया मतलब Protestant है ना. There is some suggestion that Spenser was, अच्छा इसको मैं चेक करना पड़ेगा मुझे, प्यूरिटन चर्च क्या है. और एंग्लिकन तो पुराना था ना, रोमन चर्च था. नहीं, चलो इसको क्लियर करेंगे. एंग्लिकन मैंने पीछे भी बताया था शायद किसी वीडियो में कि एंग्लिकन क्या था. जस्ट वेट. एंग्लिकन जो है ना प्रोटेस्टेंट था, क्योंकि हाँ प्रोटेस्टेंट था. चलो, प्यूरिटन मीन्स प्रोटेस्टेंट. ठीक है. ओके, व्हाट स्पेंसर, यहीं तक शायद हमने पढ़ा था. व्हाट स्पेंसर्स ओन पोजिशन इन दिस डिबेट्स वॉज नॉट क्लियर. यहाँ से तो हमने पढ़ लिया था. ठीक है. ओके, व्हाट स्पेंसर्स ओन पोजिशन इन दिस डिबेट्स वॉज नॉट क्लियर इज नॉट क्लियर, बट द व्यू अर्लियर हेल्ड दैट ही वॉज इंक्लाइंड टू बी अ रेडिकल प्यूरिटन डज नॉट हैव मच एविडेंस टू सपोर्ट इट. मतलब वो कट्टर प्यूरिटन नहीं थे, ऐसा कुछ मतलब क्लियर नहीं है उनके बारे में थे या नहीं थे. देर इज सम सजेशंस दैट स्पेंसर वाज इंक्लाइंड टू टेक ecclesiastical order at the time when he was appointed secretary to the Bishop of Rochester in 1578. His first important publication, the Shepherdess Calendar, deals more extensively than any of his later work with the bishops and the affair of English Church. काफ़ी कुछ बताया उन्होंने इसमें. But this was obviously not to be For in the same year he joined the service of Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester and favorite of Queen. This was probably his first step towards his longer term ambition of serving at the court. Around 1579 to 80, uh, when still in service with Leicester, Spenser made the acquaintance of Sir Philip Sidney, nephew of the Earl of Leicester, and joined his circle of literary friends. He was to remain a faithful and devoted friend to Sidney throughout his life, often alluding to him in his poetry and mourning his early death in an elegy. अच्छा, उन्होंने elegy भी लिखी थी एक, जब ये इनकी डेथ हो गई थी ना फिलिप सिडनी की. इट वॉज probably in this circle that Spenser began making his name as a poet, in fact, socially presenting himself as one. It was also around this time that Spenser got married to a certain Maccabeus child, ये ना थोड़ा सा Chylde, of whom again little is known, and also began work on the Fairy Queen. By 1580, he had been appointed secretary to Lord Arthur Grey, Lord Deputy of Ireland, and a friend of the Sidney family. Already in this, we can see how Spenser's literary connections work towards the furthering of his career and social rank. ओके उनका रिलेशनशिप मतलब उनकी फ्रेंडशिप थी फिलिप सिडनी के साथ, तो वो अपने करियर में भी थोड़ा इस वजह से आगे बढ़े थे. ऐसा तो होता ही है ना हमेशा. Ireland. Spenser's relationship with Ireland was in many senses typical of the attitude of the English towards the Irish in his time. Just wait. कितना है? It was treated as a colony by the English and was resisted as such by the Irish, not least because of the imposition of the English Church on a predominantly Catholic populace, and because of threats of attacks from Catholic Spain. Spenser's stay in Ireland as an administrator was therefore not without its risk. He, however, did not treat this stay as an exile. Rather, he became deeply involved with the country and its peoples, fascinated by its landscapes as much as troubled by its lawlessness. He, however, followed Lord Grey in imposing almost ruthless measures in his efforts to make the Irish accept English rule. His efforts in Ireland were to be well rewarded. The following year, 1581, Spenser succeeded the poet Lodowick Biscuit as clerk of the Chancery for Faculties, an office that channeled the dispensations of the Archbishop of Dublin, and in this sense was a key political post. He retained this post for several years until 1588. He also gained other favors, including control over forfeited land, which he may have profited from through land speculation. On leasing the small property of New Abbey, County Kildare, he was first designated gentleman, but went on to obtain a much larger estate in Munster. Repopulation of this province, scared as it was by war and starvation, was a primary goal for its administrators. Consequently, Spenser awarded large plantations to English undertakers who undertook to make them self-sustained by occupying them with Englishmen of various trades. In 1586, Spenser was assigned to Munster's Kilcolman Castle, about 25 miles to the north and west of Cork, with the task of repopulating it with English immigrants. By 1588, Spenser took over the 3,000-acre plantation of Kilcolman and was granted full lease of property in 1590. Through this, Spencer had evidently decided to rise socially and politically in Ireland, effectively a colonial land of opportunity rather than seek power and rank in London. His family was probably with him in Kilcoman at this time, although his wife may have died by then. She was definitely dead by 1594 when he married Elizabeth Boyle, मतलब second marriage की थी, whom he was to memorialize in the Amority sonnets and the Epithalamion. In his new situation, he, like other undertakers, faced stiff resistance from the local Anglo Irish aristocracy and did not have much success with the repopulation scheme. Nevertheless, it was here and in these conditions that Spenser wrote his greatest poetry. In 1589, he returned to England with a Walter relic, a favorite of the Queen, to present the first three books of the Fairy Queen to the Queen herself. They were warmly received and published the following year. His later poem, Colin Clouds Come Home Again, जो 1595 में कंप्लीट हुई थी, records Spencer's sense of being a provincial innocent up against the sophistications of a center of power in this visit, and projects his own ideal of true love as an alternative. Helgerson noted that critic थे वो बोलते हैं कि it is in this poem that the poet presents himself specifically as poet rather than courtier. He is known to have spent some of this time in 1591, apart from a quick visit to Ireland, supervising the publication of his volume of collected poems. Complaints against नाम है ये पोएम का, along with another long poem, Defneda, Daph perhaps to reinforce his claims to be first and foremost a poet. He returned to Ireland that year with a grant of an annual pension of £50 from the Queen, a princely sum in those days. उनके लास्ट ईयर के बारे में फटाफट पढ़ लेते हैं. इन आयरलैंड वंस मोर स्पेंसर continued writing despite the pressures of his various duties and posts, which were added to in 1594, when he was appointed Queen's Justice for Cork, Cork. This was also the year of his passionate courtship and marriage to Elizabeth Boyle. The Amority and Epithalamion that celebrate this event are unique in the sonnets of English Renaissance in celebrating a successful love relationship rather than complaining, as was the fashion then, of failed and unrequited one. उस टाइम पे फैशन था कि फेल्ड रिलेशनशिप पे ज़्यादा बोला जाता था, लेकिन इन्होंने सक्सेसफुल रिलेशनशिप पे बात की थी, लव रिलेशनशिप पे. स्पेंसर अगेन ट्रेवल टू लंडन शॉर्टली आफ्टर, परहैप्स इन होप ऑफ ग्रेटर रिवॉर्ड्स. नाउ दैट he was privy to the PRIVY, to the Queen herself, perhaps just to supervise the publication of a series of poems including Colin Cloud, Astrophel. ये नाम है इनकी पोइट्री के ना. पेस्टोरल एलिजी अपॉन द डेथ ऑफ द मोस्ट नोबल एंड विलोरस नाइट सर फिलिप सिडनी, द एमोरिटी सॉनेट्स एंड एपिथेलेमियन. ठीक है, वो देखने आए थे, मतलब उनको ट्रैवल किया था उन्होंने लंदन इनकी पब्लिकेशन के लिए. ओके, विच केम आउट इन 1596 विद फावरे hymns and Prothalamion, Spenser's second commissioned marriage song. This was to be the last burst of publication of his poetry in his lifetime. 2 years later, he did publish a prose tract on the current Irish situation. But in the same year, there was an insurrection in Northern and Western Ireland which spread to Munster. Now Kilcolman was attacked and burned, forcing Spenser to refuge in Cork. Okay. Although he was appointed to the important post of Sheriff of Cork at this point, he left Ireland for London, bearing dispatches from the governor of Munster to the Privy Council regarding the desperate situation there. He did not survive this visit and died the following year in London. He lied buried in Westminster Abbey, close to the grave of Geoffrey Chaucer. चलो जी, ये है कि उनकी पोजीशन एक बहुत हायर पोजीशन में वो थे, उन्होंने पोएम्स भी लिखी और काफ़ी करियर कॉन्शियस थे वो, है ना. चलो, थैंक यू सो मच. नेक्स्ट वीडियो में वी आर गोइंग टू डू द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ स्पेंसर्स लाइफ इन पोइट्री. इसका तो बड़ा रिलेशन है, इनका पॉलिटिक्स तो उनकी लाइफ में था ही था. यही एक अभी हमें नेक्स्ट वीडियो में करना है. थैंक यू सो मच.